All right, so let's just jump right into it. So because we have a few new folks, just as a quick introduction, so this is our Friday edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. This is our open Q&A session. That's my dog barking if you can hear her right now. But this is our open Q&A session. Basically, if you have an issue with Trailhead, you're stuck on a badge, you have an issue at work, some project, you're stuck on something, getting an error message, whatever it is, you can come here, ask your question, and we have lots of different sets of eyes that can hopefully help you out and try to solve your problem. The only thing that I ask is that if you do have a question, just use the raise hand icon that we have at the bottom there in the Zoom controls, and then we'll just go through them one at a time. So that being said, not super badges. That's a good point that somebody brought up there. So we typically try to avoid any kind of questions for super badges. So if you have any general questions that are not related to super badges, where's the wink emoji? You can feel free to ask those general unrelated questions. But yeah, so let's just jump in here. So Ashley, I see you have a hand up. What do you got?
Yeah, I just wonder if anybody's confronted the problem of email cases that come in, and like for us, we run a call center, so we get a lot of like roadside assistance cases come in. Some of these larger fleets, they just send everything via email, and they may be somewhat formatted. They have their template, but the agents still have to take that and populate all the case details. And has anybody run into, I don't know if there's like a chat GPT like feature that can read the content within the body of the email and then populate the fields?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Sorry, I didn't want to take your. Please go ahead.
No, absolutely. Go ahead. All I was going to say, let me just say that back to you. So essentially, when these folks are submitting cases, they're sending it via an email, and those emails are formatted. Now, are they always formatted in the exact same way, or could there be some variation from email to email?
So some of them are formatted the same way for the most part. But I would say, and we get email cases from all of our customers for the most part, but we have just a handful of customers that make up the majority, like probably at least 50% of all of our email cases. So just by being able to target even just those specific fleets would save a lot of time.
Gotcha.
But
right,
yeah,
Steven,
a lot of times they're formatted, but they won't come in because the other thing is they're not coming from like a centralized email, so it doesn't even recognize the email. It can't even populate the account. But so I'm thinking, well, but usually in those emails it might have the fleet's name in there somewhere, but it's coming from the individual user, so it's different emails. So, but even if it can and recognize like the name of the fleet, they could probably populate the account, and it has like the VIN number of the vehicle. That it has all the information we need. It's just about recognizing it and then putting it into the fields.
And they all send to the same email though.
Yes.
And you already have email to case turned on, right? It's just not populating fields on the case, or
right. It creates the case, but it's basically an empty case for the most part. For the accounts that do send it from the email address on the account, it will populate the account name, a few other things, but a good chunk of that is copy paste manually.
Have you explored any options to parse the messages, like with Mail Parser IO? Is that something you can follow, or is that just out of the question?
I don't know. That is kind of what I'm looking for right now. Yeah.
A Mail Parser basically does exactly what you're asking for. So a message arrives at that system, and you set up rules to identify the content in the messages. If they're somewhat similar, it will find exactly those spots, map it to the fields, and push it to your system. Now you can do it in different ways. You can do an API connection, or sometimes if you say you have the mail to case open or something like that, you can just send it there, forward it there, then freshly processed with a format that your system can then identify. Mailparser IO is a platform that does that, and it's actually quite sophisticated in the sense of that it is it has a lot of leeway understanding messages, not just because you found it in it, but it has some smart logics in it that it'll also find, oh, that is the VIN number. Okay, let's pick that up. I know that because we had our own mail parser system, and it was way less sophisticated than that, and it's really easy to use Mail Parser IO.
And that's just an app exchange type thing, or
It's
I haven't explored app exchange products very much because my company's very, risk averse, and they look at everything as a potential security risk. So there's almost nothing
and
that we
that
use.
is the one thing that you have to obviously vet. You're sending messages through a third party. They do state that their system is secure when it comes to that, and they regard everything in privacy, data privacy, and so on. I think they're located in the UK. But it's definitely worth investigating. Mail Parser IO. They have so you basically get an email address that you can send messages to, that you can try it out. What you would do is you would send a copy from your recipient email address. So you keep the originals, and you set forward to that Mail Parser IO address the messages that you get unchanged, right? Because you don't want suddenly other HTML to be in there, because and you want the real text actually to be in the message, because what the mail parsers read is the text only version of an email, not the HTML. So you will have to investigate a little bit that, and I'm honestly, I'll if you need some more info on that, we can take that offline. I'd be happy to give you some pointers.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Now, just to throw a question out there. Now, assuming that we are working at the most risk adverse company in the world, and all we had to do was use out of the box Salesforce functionality to try to meet this requirement, what other options do we have here? Anybody have any thoughts on other ways that we might at least get even if it was, as Ashley said, like a 50% solution that would at least save some time? So any thoughts there before I go down? Yeah.
You could write the content of the messages just to a text block and parse it through with Salesforce, which may work. Like you could use regex on it and try to extract some pieces of it, but it will be a hassle to build that.
Well, that's kind of the direction I was thinking too. So you imagine you have your current email case. The body of the email is being put into the description field, right? Now, assuming that the name of your fleet carriers are something that's unique and not like you don't have a fleet carrier called and or something, you know what I mean? Just like if it's a unique name, I can see a world where you could have a decision block and a flow that whenever a case is created, if the details field contains the word squirrel fleet management or whatever it is, you know what I mean, like that text block, then associated to that account. But that could be error prone. Like if they have if your carrier's name is Fleet and you look for the word fleet, well, there might be other things that say, hey, our fleet is having a problem. You know what I mean? So like you might get some false positives. But even just a record triggered flow in the case object that looks at the details field and then does some basic contains type logic that could get you somewhere.
How's it?
Actually, I think you're on mute right now.
Sorry, I was, and I muted myself before I started talking. Yeah, just a flow to read that. Look, if it contains like the VIN number, then enter that into this field type thing.
Well, that gets a little bit more complicated, and I think that, and I don't know too much about VINs, but is there a standard format where they all start with like VIN, or is there some,
It would basically, no, yeah, that would be a bit harder. It uses
Yeah.
it would use the last 8 digits of it, but
As I say, there are a set number of characters for a VIN, though, isn't there?
Well, the challenge is that, I think Stephen had mentioned about using regex. I mean, that's always an option. I haven't used regex within a flow, but looking for very specific words is one thing. Looking for at all the words in the thing, using regular expressions to try to parse one that could be a VIN number, that's a little bit more complex of a thing. Can it be done? Maybe. I don't know. I like I said, I haven't used the regex functions within Flow. Has anybody done that before?
So I have, but regex within Salesforce is somewhat limited. It has specific rules around it that, and I believe in flows, it allows you to just get a true or false. I'm not even sure if you can really get the word out, the string. So yeah, the answer is somewhere in between. I don't know.
Maybe. The
Maybe.
Right,
answer is
we're
maybe.
let's take 2 seconds here, and we'll just take a quick look here. So right now I'm in one of my Trailblazer playgrounds. Let's go to flows and just see what the options are. And then actually, this might be one that you just have to kind of dork around. What I will say for regex, of all the things I've done in my development career, regex for whatever reason just doesn't stick in my head, right? ChatGPT though, you could say here are 5 different examples of data. Can you write me a regular expression that will match these things? And it does a really good job at that. So definitely something to review if this is going to work. But let's just see here. So let's just say that we had record triggered flow, case object. Whenever a case is created, let's just ignore all the rest of this. So it's just going to go through every single time. And let's just see under the formulas here. Let's see if we created a new resource. Let's do a formula and call this, I don't know, has it been? I don't even know. Let's see. And then we did this as a Boolean. When we go to insert a function, this is what I wanted to see here. Do we have anything with regex? Would be the question here. Just bear with me. My alphabet skills are, regex.
Words are hard.
Okay, so you can pass in the text, the regular expression, and it will return true if the text matches the regular expression, otherwise returns false. So this might be an option. Again, I don't know too much about VINs, but if they're all like exactly 23 characters, they all start with a number and whatever it is, or a number of
What it
characters.
does is it says like those emails will have VIN, and then you got the colon, and then here's lists out the VIN number. So
Yeah.
if I ran, I tested it out running in ChatGPT, and it can do exactly what I need to do. So that's kind of what I was thinking, is there a ChatGPT like function in Salesforce, and how to use it?
I don't think they're quite there yet. I'm sure you could build something that you can call like external models like GPT to do that, but something where if the email template has like VIN colon and then the actual VIN number after it, again, I could see something where you develop a formula that says find VIN colon and then from that location grab the next 23 characters and then put that through a trim function that removes all the spaces and new lines and all that kind of stuff. Again, is it going to be perfect? Maybe not, but could you get close? Maybe, right? And I could even see a world where a lot of these things where you're not sure if it's going to be the exact solution. It might get you close, right? Where you can maybe find the account, you maybe find the VIN, you maybe find all these different things that you care about. And instead of putting it directly in the fields or connecting it to the account on the actual field that you need it to, maybe there's a section on your case layout that's like parsed fields that we think might match, and it says like account could be this and the VIN could be that, and then you could just kind of scan it and say, oh, that's right, and click OK, like a screen flow where you click OK and then it actually connects it to those things. So I can see how you kind of work with this, and maybe not a record trigger flow where it makes the decision for you, but a screen flow in the layout where it does all these things and then lets you kind of decide, yes, I want to accept that, or nah, it didn't even get close, and then you can do it like you've always been doing it. I think you're on mute again.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll have to play around with it.
And to add to that, I would suggest identifying the major or the 2 major email formats that they're all the same. That will make discovery for you easier to say, okay, how do I want to do it? Especially if you see, okay, you have one email format that is used in 75% of the times, then you can actually build something around it that will help your users. And then there's still the rest where, okay, they still might have to do some manual work.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And
answer is probably no to this, but since you said there was a couple of big customers, is there any way to ask them to like enter a ticket directly instead of sending an email so that you could just have all the information that you wanted? I know how
Yeah.
it is to be it on the customer service side, but you know.
Yeah, the problem is it would go from the way they do it, they have their own system, so it's literally click a button and it submits the case and all the details to us. So I can maybe try to get them to format it differently if it helps me.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
But
say. Yeah.
I'm never gonna get them to start entering it into like a web case type stuff
No,
because
Well,
but all you
but
really need is the beginning and the end of each value that you need. That you have so you need an anchor. For example, for the VIN number, if they say VIN colon and then you have the number, you know exactly every time there's the key with VIN, there should be a VIN number after it, right?
oh yeah, that makes
So
sense.
if you can get them to put it in a structured form, and doesn't matter if it's VIN name and then the phone number or the other way around, because whatever you use to identify it in the content doesn't care where it is. It just looks for that anchor.
Yeah, it just needs to be consistent. Yeah.
Right.
yeah, I mean that's a great point. So maybe reaching out to them, not telling them, hey, use our system, but say, okay, use whatever system you have. When you email it to us, can you at least put these specific tags in it at the end that has key information, the account name, the VIN number, you know, and even try to
Yeah.
sell them it like, hey, if you do that, it'll increase our response time and everything
Yeah.
else, you know.
Yeah, I
So
have some, you know, this is a new position I'm in right now, so I'm gonna start visiting fleets, you know, coming up. So it'll be a good opportunity to kind of try to make that pitch.
yeah,
So,
and the one thing I might say is that uh, maybe do a little research beforehand, figure out how you want it to be, so that when you're going out there, you're saying, hey, could you do this, as opposed to like a hypothetical, hey, do you think you could do something like, you know, just and be
yeah.
able to just show them, here's the format I would love it in if you could do it, just hand it to them, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, as always, like anything else though, once you kind of go through this, let us know what you find. And if you try to do something with your parsing the existing emails you're receiving now and you run into any issues, like I said, with either regex, the find functions, the find specific, characters and then grab something after it, definitely let us know. We could definitely walk through examples on that stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on this before we move to Sandy's question? All right, Sandy, what do you got?
Potentially have two questions, depending on if anybody else has anything after this. So my first question is attachments versus files. Ran, the whole optimizer thing, and it mentioned the fact that we have attachments and it needs to be converted to files because you can't really see your attachments anymore in Salesforce unless you do like an actual inquiry and stuff like that. So you can't just see it. But it recommends that you convert them to files, but I don't know how.
So question is, you have a bunch of attachments. They say you need to convert it to files. How do you do such a thing? Anybody have any thoughts on this?
I didn't do it myself, but I know that there's a utility to do that. And I don't know if it's on the Exchange, but a coworker had to do that at a former company that I worked at. And that's what she used, a script that was provided from, I believe, Salesforce or some other company.
Yeah, it's a Salesforce Labs thing on the App Exchange.
Yeah,
We
I
looked
just-
at it because we got a bunch of stuff from Panda Docs that all came in as attachments. We decided to leave it alone because it gets a little dicey with the way that Panda Docs was integrated into Salesforce. So yeah, it's older stuff, and we just decided that it's not as important. There are ways to get to it if you need it, and we don't need it that often. So that's the decision we made. But yes, the tool is available.
Yeah, I saw that they recommended a tool. I just wonder if there's a better way or easier way or different way. But again, I don't think any of our attachments are that important either, but looking for, sometimes it's like just trying to clean up the org, make things look better, be able to go, hey, this is what you should do if we're not doing it.
Yeah. Just for folks that might not be aware, let me just share my screen real quick. So when we talk about Salesforce Optimizer, if you go into setup and you type in Optimizer up here in your quick find, you'll see this page here. There's usually this first step you have to do to grant access, and then you can set up a schedule or you can just run it manually. When you click on that Open Optimizer, it should take you to a page that kind of looks like this. And then I have absolutely no idea how long this is going to take for this to finish. It says up to 24 hours. That's crazy to me that it might take that long. But here, let's just refresh and see if it finished. There you go. So this is what it kind of spits out. So it's a list of all the different features and things that you need to review, like issues that you might have within your Salesforce org. And then it gives you the status. And then the ones that are, critical, they'll have these kind of flashy things here say like, you need to do this immediately, because it could potentially be like a security issue or something like that. But yeah, so you could run that on your Salesforce org. And in theory, I think for any one of these, let's just say we look at files adoption, as we were just talking about. If you click on that, it'll tell you the recommendation on how to address this issue and the approximate amount of effort, right? So 1 to 2 hours, you should have this all wrapped up, Sandy. Don't worry about it. Right?
And
But yeah.
also recommend doing the health check as well.
Okay, let's take a look at that then. So real quick, just to wrap this up though. So under help here, besides the recommendation, they should have some links that should point you in the right direction. Moving documents to Salesforce files.
Mhm.
Just click on that. Sure, I guess. Yeah, that never works for me. Anyway, you get the idea, right? So you go through here, click on these things. You kind of go through all the things in your work, and the goal is that eventually you run this and there's nothing on there. So there you go. All right. So what's the other one now?
Health check.
In the chat, I dropped a link to a blog post that has a pretty simple looking Apex code. I'm looking over it and I think it'll take care of you.
All right, so health check. There we go. So you run this, so you go to this page within setup again, and it gives you another list of things that you should be looking at. So high risk security settings, things like clickjack protection, medium risk, things like password lifetimes. I don't know what all this stuff is, a lot of this, but yeah. So you kind of go through here, and the goal here is to get everything green, compliant.
Or a certain percentage as well.
Yeah. So what are we at now? 71%. That's good.
Mhm.
Right.
I think
if I
that
was in,
the thing that my attitude towards Optimizer and Health Check is document it, what
Yeah.
the state was and what decisions you made and why, because you're never going to get rid of all this stuff. Some of
No.
these things that it flags, it's like we're aware of it and we're not going to change it because there's reasons why we need it this way. But just document it so that you later go back and somebody says, why in the world didn't we fix this? Okay, well, I don't remember what I was thinking at the time, but if I have it documented, then yeah.
Well, we take advantage of that if we have a client who wants us to assess their org, and like, because we actually had one client, that's where I started using all that stuff, where theirs was such a mess. And so they wanted us to fix it for them. And luckily, the person who owns our company said, before I agree to that, I want to see it. And so they gave us access and I looked at it, their health check, and so basically I took all their health check stuff and I threw that in a spreadsheet, and like the critical, the warnings, the stuff that they were good on, whether it was a high risk or not. And I wrote, kept track of all that, went through the optimizer, kept track of that, started going through their flows and process builders and like their all that kind of stuff, and just like the and how much like their sandbox did not match their production and just how much of a mess they were. Like we basically really outpriced ourselves. Like we gave them a ridiculously high because we did not want to touch their org without just going, we don't want to touch your org. So but yeah, that was kind of where I started learning about that and playing with it. And it is helpful, especially if you are trying to do it for somebody else. Like, hey, these are the things that you are doing that probably aren't recommended. If you as long as you understand why, you can keep it that way. But these are the things that we noticed. So it is a really good check in that aspect as well. And then also it is a good check on your own org when you're like, oh yeah, or when they change things. 'Cause that click check thing is kind of a new thing that I haven't seen previously on the health check before. Or optimizer. I don't remember which one it was on.
Yeah, so here you can actually export it. I was seeing if there's an option for the optimizer to do the same thing. The fact that when I came back to this page, it had that list of things here. I don't know if this is stored within Salesforce or if this is like external. But the fact that we'd allow access, I'm guessing it might be an external thing and that you might not be able to query this and download it. You know, like I said, to be able to track progress and how well you're doing with updating stuff. But yeah, health check and optimizer, if you haven't looked at it, worth taking a look at just to see where your org stands and kind of give you an idea of where you want to start cleaning stuff up. Any questions on that or any other thoughts? All right, let's,
I'll
Sandy,
ask
I
my
hope
other-
that answers your question. Maybe.
Yeah, just a curiosity thing. But I have another question then if nobody else has anything that they want to talk about. So
Yeah, what do you got?
if you can embed screen flows on a page layout.
Mhm.
Is there a way other than refreshing the page to be able to refresh the flow?
I'm going to give a short answer, and then we can see if anybody else has any feedback. Now, I think it depends on the type of screen flow that you're using, right? In some cases, we've created screen flows that we want to like aggregate data, right? So like when the screen flow renders, it's doing some get records, it's doing some processing, and then eventually gets to the screen and it's got the data that it's going to display. Now, if you leave the next button at the bottom, you click next, and it causes it to go back to the beginning, requery all the data, redo everything, and then it renders the new data, right? So that could work in that case. Where it doesn't work is obviously if your next button connects to a bunch of other stuff that you wanted to do. You know, that's an issue. So let me pause there.
So
Yeah,
my
yeah.
workaround that I have, which doesn't work in every case, is that I have kind of like that starting element of where it gets the records. If it finds none, it goes you down one path that says, hey, there's nothing for you to look at right now. And then the finish button, I renamed to refresh. So that was my workaround on that aspect. But the other thing is if on the same page, I use a different screen flow to add like a record that should be viewed in the next one, it doesn't automatically, if there are already other records, I don't have a way to refresh it if it's already displaying stuff. So if there
Yeah.
was nothing to display in the first place, I have a refresh button. But if it's kind of one of those things where it had records to look at and I wanted to add that record, it doesn't add it unless I refresh the page. So I know there should be a way, I just don't know how complicated it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a way to do it with like lightning components, but that's not answering your question about how you would do this with flow. My mind immediately went to, could you have some kind of checkbox that you check that says refresh the data? When you click next, it kind of bypasses everything and just takes you back to the beginning. But then that requires the user to like click something and check something. I don't think there's a clean way to just have like a refresh icon that when you click on it, just refreshes the flow. I don't think that's a thing. That said, why don't we just very quickly just take a quick look, and we might be able to kill two birds with one stone here with that one of the other questions we had around flows on the case object. So what I'm going to do here, let's actually go to flow. Let's create a new flow. Let's do a screen flow.
And let me just confirm, Sandy, you're talking potentially you have two flows embedded on the same page. One flow does some stuff. You want that second flow to then refresh to have the new data that the first flow affected.
Right. So
I don't see how to do that without a page refresh,
I mean,
which you can
we've
get your
talked
flows to
about
trigger, but
right. We've talked about it, and I know I've looked it up, but it was at least at the time because it was a year ago that we were talking about it, and now we're kind of back working on. It's basically a demo org is what we have. We have a demo org in order to kind of be able to display, things that we're doing. And the concept is I've got the page layout and then a tabs across it for different aspects of what they're doing. So on this tab, they're going to do things related to their project that updates things. And then the next tab. And so there is always the possibility that they're not doing them all consecutively anyway, and that the page would automatically get refreshed prior to them going to the next screen flow, but we have them displayed on different tabs on that page layout. So it's kind of cool. I like it. I like the way it looks, at least in the aspect of being able to refresh like my little workaround for refreshing the flow if it was empty to start out with. But yeah, if I just need to refresh the records, at this point, it's just a page refresh, which isn't, I think, as user-friendly to basically have to refresh it differently depending on what you're doing.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like if this was something that I was going to put like in our product and I just knew customers were going to add it onto the page, I didn't know if they were going to put it under tabs or accordions or right on the layout itself. That's where Lightning Components is nice because you can actually communicate with events, where you can have like one component fire an event and another component picks it up and can do something. But I don't think that functionality exists under flows right now.
Well, you could create a Lightning component and tell the page to refresh.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
at the end of the
that might have
flow,
been
at the
what we
screen flow, just
discussed.
to tell it refresh the page, the entire page, obviously.
Right. And I think that might have been what we discussed, but I do not have that skill set yet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but you're right back into having to create a Lightning component. So doing it without a Lightning component, I think would be the challenge. Having one flow let another flow know that it needs to refresh. Another option potentially, let's just say that you had two screen flows that are doing completely different things and you want people to be able to kind of go back and forth between them. Is there an option where you can have kind of a master screen that's got like a radio button that's like step one, and when they click next, it takes them to that screen flow, they do a bunch of stuff, and then when that finishes, it takes them back to that kind of menu, and then they click on the second step, and then they click next, and it takes them to the second thing. So in other words, like you don't have a flow over here and a flow over here, but it's like a single flow that you're kind of managing the navigation through like some master screen with some radio buttons or a drop down or something.
I do have something similar in a different org that is like that, and then that way when like when they refresh the page or whatever, if they come back to whatever they're working on, it starts them back where they left off. I do have something like that in a different one, but it's because it's the same flow and I've got those decision things, whereas this one is, they're kind of different, completely different concepts. Like,
Yeah.
basically it's like think of it, it's not quite the same thing, but like a job application. So it's like all these applications come in. So the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to review those, to review the applications, are they qualified? Are they not qualified? Do they need additional information? Blah, blah, blah. So like kind of setting that. If they get to that qualified status, then there was a different screen flow where they can select people, not select people. And so it's kind of like that concept. And so that's why I had the whole, and plus there might be a time period on when they can open stuff up or not open stuff up, but they might still take applications all the time. So that was why it was completely two separate flows that we had created.
Yeah.
Yeah, so previously I ran into a similar problem. I needed to refresh the screen flow at the end of the flow. So I created very simple Aura component that refreshes the page of that record. I can definitely send you that code. It's like one-line code that you plug it in at the end of your flow, and it will automatically refresh that page for you.
Is it
It's Aura component.
okay?
Yeah,
Along that line.
That should
that-
definitely solve your problem.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, Amar. The other thing kind of along that line, besides my dog going crazy because my family's just getting home, the other thing to take a look at, Sandy, would be unofficial SF. Under their screen flow section, they have things like that about refreshing the page and things that you might be able to grab, similar to what Amar is saying, but they might be kind of pre-canned that you can take a look at. So I just posted the link in the chat, and just very quickly, let me just share my screen so you can kind of see they have things here like auto navigation and advanced navigation buttons and
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff you might be able to do there. Connecting one flow to another and having it refresh. I don't know if they have that there, but definitely worth looking into for all the stuff they have on here.
I think I've done, I know we've used buttons, some of their button aspects in other places.
Yeah, like that, I'm curious, like that one that they have here for auto navigate after a certain amount of time. Like, I wonder, I don't think you want the thing like checking stuff every couple of seconds, but even if you had it where like every 5 seconds it would auto navigate back to its start. I don't know. Yeah, it's something to look at. Like, so if something happened over here, it waits a certain amount of time, then it just automatically repaints over there. That could be a thing, or it might not be a thing. I have no idea because I've never used it, but something to look into. So
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a a demo org, and the use case might not even be there, but it would be kind of a cool thing to even learn how to do if it is possible. Because you've got the little refresh button on like related lists, so it'd be kind of cool if you could just put that little thing right there on your screen flow too.
yeah, that would be awfully convenient. Now, I'm also wondering. I don't know if this exists, but if it doesn't, it can be done. I know for sure that this could be done, but you can imagine if they had the nebulous a Lightning web component that basically you can put onto your layout, and the only thing that when you add it to your Lightning page, the only parameter that's there is you select a flow, right? So it's all it's going to do is be a container for a flow, and the only other thing it has there is a refresh button in the top right. So you know what I mean? Like you create almost like a flow container with a refresh button. You can put any flow that you want into it, and when you click refresh, it just repaints the flow. If that's not a thing, I think that could be a thing. So I think that's doable, more than doable.
That could be a thing.
And then when you ask yourself, well, if it could be a thing, why isn't it a thing? It's just out of the box.
Like my process is, I'm like, if I have this idea, I can't be the first one to have had this idea, and so why isn't it a thing yet?
Yeah. So I think that could definitely be something that could be done. And it might already be there. It might be on unofficial SF. Like you said, if somebody's thought about it and a lot of people get use out of it, that would be the first place I would look. I honestly have no idea how these solutions get on unofficial SF, but whoever puts them there, these people are doing good work there.
And I'm sorry, I may have missed it, but are you doing a screen flow because your user just needs to interact to enter data, or because it's something visual for them to see and that's what you need to refresh?
There is the interaction element and also the visual aspect of it. So essentially, like, we're trying to do that whole concept, like you've got that paper copy of an application and you're trying to review something, and then if you do select it, you need to enter specific data about your choice and stuff like that. So it was basically, here's your data table. You can either select one or multiple. You select it, like what are you select it, and then what are you offering, or what are you giving, or what have you, awarded.
Okay.
And then we have, yeah, it was kind of fun to build, because it was
Something
just,
I've done for inventory management is build a screen flow with both display and text fields, and then launch that off of an action button. So that way, within a loop. So the refresh aspect is the fact that every time they get a new delivery for that, it was sitting on a work order, they would click the button, which will run through the loop, and that's where you're refreshing your data, checking to see, get the data when the total left is not zero, that type of thing. So we're refreshing the data, so it's not always there. It's not telling them you still need to receive 6, but when they click that action button and it runs that loop, that's where I display, hey, there's 6 more to go. How many did you receive? So if that helps, that's something I've done and made it work.
so let me see if I can. So because it is just a quick sort of concept, I think. So this was basically our setup. So like, this is the details about a program. These are all the different things of applications. Then we have that screen. So anybody that has met, has submitted it, then you can kind of go through this screen flow to review their application. This is what my little workaround of if there was nothing yet. And then you could just hit the refresh and it'll reset the screen flow. But that was kind of that. But the problem is, again, if there's already a list of stuff that has been submitted and people are still working on this screen, to then refresh this after, if anybody new pops up while they're still working on that page, is kind of what I'm trying to get at. So it's not so much like an end refresh, it's like a middle refresh almost.
And is there interaction here?
Yeah.
Because like a related list wouldn't help. A related list displaying the columns with the information.
Because I need to be able to edit the record that they're looking at.
Yeah, so that editing, that was one of our issues. Editing isn't allowed on related lists yet.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it is in a way, but you're still opening up the record as a separate screen.
And this is really close to what we did. So there is a solution on unofficial SF, but it requires maintenance, right? There were 2 plugins that you needed to put in, and you had to maintain it. If not, it basically breaks. So yeah.
No, I wonder what that maintenance is. Like you have to add oil every once in a while. Like, is it something that it was just like you have to edit records and stuff just to?
Every 3,000 records.
Yeah, and I'd have to go back. This was back in December. But
Oh, something like you have to like download updated packages every once in a while. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's not ideal.
If I remember correctly. And they're updated at different times.
Of course.
Yeah, definitely not ideal. But yeah, if you happen to have the links to those and you want to share that, something to look at. And like I said, that master list of all the screen components on unofficial SF, definitely worth looking into. Yeah, I just feel like eventually we'll get to the point in the declarative tools within Salesforce, specifically Flow, where we can at least be at a little bit of parity with Lightning Web Components. Something as basic as a refresh button, I think that would be a great step in the right direction, but we'll see. Does anybody have any experience with Omni Studio? Would that help in a case like this with all their weird UI development that you can do with that I have no experience in? Is that a thing?
I am, my next goal is to work on the Service Cloud thing, and I know that that's part of it, but I'm not looking forward to learning about it because it also appeared, the Omni Studio stuff or Omni channels also appeared when I was doing the Slack stuff, if you remember that. When I was doing some of that Slack automation.
All right. Well, as always, Sandy, whatever you decide and whatever you figure out, please report back so we know where you ended up.
I'm still waiting on my fruit baskets.
Yep, we'll get them eventually. All right, let's see. Anybody else have any questions on this before we open it back up for questions? All right. All right. Anybody else have any questions that they wanted to go through on any topic whatsoever? If I hear none, I have something that we can walk through real quick.
Let's do it.
All right. So here's what I want to do. Now, let me see. Is Ashley still on the call?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. All right. So what I want to do here, just very quickly, I'm going to share my screen. And I just want to see, let's go to our case object. And why I keep getting this. Get out of here. Okay. So let's go back to normal Salesforce for a sec. Let's go to Service Cloud or the service app. Let's go to cases. And what I want to do here, I want to create a screen flow that I'm going to put on the case object. And all I really care about is looking at the case description. All right, so just to simplify our lives here, I want to put that description field right at the top because that's the only thing that we're going to care about here. I want to see if we can create a screen flow that parses the description. And if it contains the word VIN and a colon with some VIN numbers after it, it'll just throw that thing right into a text field that you could say, is this the right VIN? You hit OK, and it'll update a VIN field. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab a field section I'll throw this up top here. Let's grab the actual description field, which is here. Throw that guy there. Let's go over here and turn this to one column. So that's all we have at the top there is our description field. All right, now let's go back. We'll have that description there. And now let's go to setup, go to our flows, and let's create a screen flow. And just so that we can kind of work on this iteratively, I'm going to create it, we'll save it, and then we'll throw it onto the layout, and then we can kind of toggle back and forth to make changes and see the impact. So in this case, all I'm going to do is in my screen flow, I'm going to create a screen element, and let's give this thing a name. Let's actually get you all out of the way first. All right, so this is going to be my VIN screen. I'm horrible at naming these things too, so just bear with me here. All right, so all this is going to do, let's actually add in a, just for now, we'll keep it simple. Let's do a display text, say VIN displayer, that's a thing. And in here, we're going to display a variable at some point, but just for now, I'm going to say some text. All right, so let's do done. Let's save this thing. We'll call this case VIN displayer. And I'm looking at the clock. We got 9 minutes. Let's see if we can do this. So let's activate this, and then let's go to our case layout. I'm going to edit the page, and let's put this flow right at the top here. All right, so in theory, we should have the flow element here. Throw that over there. We should be able to select, see, this is where I always wonder, what did I call that? Oh, case VIN displayer. Here we go. All right, so we'll add that to the layout, save. And then let's go back, and now let's give it some data to actually work with here. All right, so in my description field, let's put name, Jim, Bob, company, fleet, something, and then we'll say VIN, colon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, which I think is the standard in the US. So let's go with that. And then we'll click save. Okay, so there's our description. Here's our flow displaying some text. So now let's go over to the flow somewhere here. Okay, let's create a formula field now. Let's see, formula. We're going to say, call this the VIN we found. Data type is going to be text. And now this is the part where I have absolutely no idea how we're going to do this. So for now, I'm just going to put in like double quotes here because I forgot there's one thing we need to do. We actually need to pass in the case so that we have something to work with. So we're going to create a variable called record ID. And if Stephen Trimble was on the call, he would be proud of me, but I'm going to use record instead of just text. The object is going to be case. All right, so we'll be able to pass in the case that we're currently looking at. And then now that we have that, if I go back into the VIN that we found, now we can get creative with this, right? So the first thing I want to do is I just want to, again, anytime I'm working with flows or we're going to build something complex, start simple. All I'm going to do now is put the description in here. So it's going to grab the entire description. So let's go back to our screen, and instead of displaying some text, let's actually replace this now with our variable, the VIN that we found. So my expectation here is that when I save this and we go back to our case, I'm going to see the entire description in this field. And then we'll start to whittle it down to see if we can find the actual VIN. So if we refresh here and we look at our thing, let's see, did I not do it right? Let's see. Oh, yes, because we're supposed to be passing in the case, but we haven't done that part yet. The flow is just on the layout. We didn't pass anything into it. So when we go here, we need to say pass in the field values, and it should automatically pass in the entire record there. So let's save that. And if we go back with 6 minutes left, let's see if we can do this. There we go. We got the entire description. All right, so now what I want to do is see if we can get a little bit closer to that actual VIN. So if we go back into our formula, I have no idea what it is, but I'm sure there's a function here that has something around the words find, right? So that's not right. I'm also working on a touchpad during this instead of my external mouse, and
Ooh.
this is really difficult. So let's see. All right, so the search text I want to look for is we're going to put IN colon, and then the text that we're going to search for is going to be our description. Now, again, I'm sure there might be a gotcha here where you can't search certain size fields or type fields. I have absolutely no idea, but we're going to figure it out. So let's see. Let's see, data type, number. Okay, yeah. Okay, because it's going to find the position. So let's just throw in here wrap that around with text, and hopefully we'll be able to see, okay, where did it find the actual number with 5 minutes left? Let's see. Let's activate that. All right, we go back here, we refresh. I'm assuming it's going to be like 50 or something like that, 43. Okay, so it found Vin colon at position 43. Now, the next thing I want to do is from that position, I want to grab 19 characters to the right of it, and we'll see what that looks like. All right, so go back into our formula, get rid of this text thing here. So we found the position where the word Vin is. So then I have to assume, again, if Salesforce is a legitimate mid, yep. So I was looking for some kind of substring functionality. So mid, there we go. All right, so the text that I care about is going to be our description. So the record ID, touchpad's killing me. All right, so let's slowly navigate down. Oh, I clicked. Guys, I clicked again. All right, there we go. Description. So we got that. The start number is now going to be that number that I found. So let's
and it might be that plus 4 or 5 to get you the VIN, the colon, and the space.
yeah, let's just see where we're at though. Let's do 20 characters just from that point. So check syntax. So this should give me some kind of substring that gets me close to the VIN with 3 minutes left. Let's see. All right, so we refresh this, and I'm assuming it's going to be Vin colon and then something. Yeah, there we go.
Oh yeah.
So we did Vin colon space, and then we have 17 characters. So the VIN number, we did 20. So that's 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
Step
So
5.
22 characters. Yeah, we should get the full VIN number with Vin colon in the beginning. But let's actually do what Ryan mentioned there. Let's actually do some plus numbers here. So we found where Vin is, and it will return the location at the beginning. So we actually want to move over 5 characters, 4 characters, something like that.
Well, yeah, after, yeah.
Yeah, so we just did +4. I think that should get us like to the space. So let's see. We'll save as again. There's a good chance we might get an error like substring too far or something. I have no idea. Let's see.
I think you'll be okay even if you go beyond.
Okay. Yeah. So there you go. So that could be a thing. Now, the next step would be you can have something here that says, like on the screen itself, like underneath of this thing that says, does this look legit, or sus ? And then underneath of that, you can have like a choice group, that says legit, sus, and then if it's legit, it actually updates the case record. If it's sus, it takes you back, whatever it is. But you can see how you can get from just that screen flow where it parses through, finds the things based on text and everything else, presents it to you, and then you can give the user the option to say this stuff looks good, hit OK, and it would update the record with the appropriate VIN number or account name or something like that.
Love it. Love it. I'm gonna definitely play around with that.
All right, with
I think
45
that'll
seconds
help
to
a lot.
spare. Yeah.
Rock.
In fact, but what you did in 9 minutes is gonna take me like 12 hours. So
Well, these calls are recorded for quality assurance and training purposes, and you can always reach out to me on Slack if you get stuck on anything. But I think that should get you close. I think again, it's not like generative AI, parsing it and giving you just straight up answers, but it's like old school, just parsing strings and seeing if you can find stuff that matches. But it might get you close. At least, like you said,
I
for
think so.
percentage of them, and that could save time for your team and everything else. So,
Thank you.
all right. Well, looks like we are at the top of the hour. So if anybody has any other questions that we didn't get to, by all means, put a note in Slack, throw something up on LinkedIn, tag me on there. But otherwise, for those that are celebrating, hope you have a nice long weekend and a holiday, and I will see you all next Friday. Thanks all.